That night, when the white tulips arrived at her desk with no card and the entire office went quiet, Tessa Reed understood something she'd spent 28 years refusing to believe. Unwanted didn't mean unworthy, it just meant she'd been waiting for someone who saw the difference. The Metropolitan Gala smelled like champagne and old money, notes of bergamot cologne layered over the faint metal tang of stressed silk and polished marble. Tessa stood near the coat check, her navy dress borrowed from a colleague who'd assured her simple never fails, which now felt like a euphemism for invisible. Around her, Manhattan's finest circulated beneath crystal chandeliers, their laughter precise, their jewelry louder than their voices. She was here because her boss, Camille Rowan, believed data analysts deserved a seat at these tables. But Tessa's immediate objective was simpler: survive 2 hours, avoid small talk about hedge funds, and leave before anyone noticed she'd swapped her name tag. Twice to dodge a former client, the ballroom's temperature hovered somewhere between elegant discomfort and why did I wear tights, and every surface gleamed with the kind of shine that only happened when someone else did the polishing. Tessa clutched a sparkling water, room temperature unfortunately, and tried to look purposeful while standing alone. She'd learned that trick in college: hold something, appear occupied, become furniture. It usually worked. Tonight, though, the marble floor felt slippery beneath her borrowed heels, and the low hum of conversation pressed against her ears like static. She didn't belong here. She knew it. The room knew it. And judging by the sideways glance from a woman in emerald silk, the emerald woman knew it too. Tessa's phone buzzed in her clutch, a message from her mother asking if she'd remembered to pick up the prescription. She typed a quick reply, then looked up to find the crowd parting near the terrace doors. Someone important had arrived. Someone whose name she probably should have known. If you're wondering how an invisible data analyst catches the eye of Wall Street's coldest mind, hit subscribe. This story moves fast, and you won't want to miss what happens next. The terrace was quieter, colder, and blessedly empty. Or so Tessa thought until she stepped outside and nearly collided with a man leaning against the railing. He didn't turn, didn't acknowledge her, just stood there in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than her rent, staring at the skyline like it owed him an apology. Tessa hesitated, debated retreating, then decided fresh air was worth the awkwardness. She moved to the opposite railing, giving him space. For a full minute, neither spoke. The city hummed below. Taxi horns, distant sirens, the subway's rhythmic clatter. Then the man's phone rang. He glanced at the screen, declined the call, and let out a breath so sharp it could have shattered glass. Rough night? Tessa said before she could stop herself. He turned. And Tessa's brain did something embarrassing. It cataloged his face like a spreadsheet. Sharp jawline. Gray eyes that looked expensive somehow. Dark hair slightly mussed as if he'd been running his hands through it. She recognized him now. Ethan Hale, CEO of Hale Tech, the man whose quarterly earnings report she'd analyzed last month, whose reputation for ruthless efficiency had made him a business school case study. He looked tired. Human. Not quite the marble statue she'd expected. Something like that, he said, his voice lower than she'd imagined. You escaping too? Tessa nodded. I'm not great at galas or crowds or small talk about market trends. A ghost of a smile crossed his face. Then we have that in common. They stood in silence again, but this time it felt less like avoidance and more like mutual understanding. Tessa pulled her shawl tighter. The October air bit through silk and noticed Ethan watching her from the corner of his eye. You're shivering, he said. I'm fine. He shrugged off his jacket anyway and held it out. Tessa stared at the outstretched fabric, at the subtle sheen of Italian wool, at the gesture that felt too intimate for strangers. She should have refused, should have made some quip about chivalry being dead. Instead, she took it. The jacket smelled like cedar and something clean, and when she slipped it over her shoulders, it settled there with the weight of someone else's gravity. Thank you, she said quietly. Ethan nodded, leaned back against the railing. What do you do when you're not avoiding galas? Data analysis, financial modeling mostly. I work for Rowan Advisory. His eyebrows lifted just slightly, but enough. Camille Rowan's firm? You know her? Everyone knows Camille. She doesn't suffer fools and she doesn't hire mediocrity. He tilted his head. So what are you doing hiding on a terrace? Tessa laughed, surprised by her own honesty. Trying not to feel like an imposter. Ethan's expression shifted, something unreadable flickering behind his eyes. "Yeah," he said softly. "I know that feeling." Before Tessa could respond, the terrace doors burst open. A woman in red satin, makeup precise, smile practiced, swept toward Ethan with the confidence of someone who'd never been told no. "There you are," the woman said, her voice bright and sharp. "Your mother's been looking everywhere. The Vanderbilt endowment people want to meet you before the auction starts." Ethan straightened, the mask sliding back into place. "I'll be there in a moment, Claire." Claire's gaze flicked to Tessa, lingered on the jacket draped over her shoulders, then returned to Ethan with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Of course. Don't be long." She disappeared inside, leaving a trail of perfume and unspoken judgment. Tessa started to remove the jacket. "You should probably keep it," Ethan said. "I'll find you before you leave." And then he was gone, swallowed back into the ballroom's golden glow, leaving Tessa alone on the terrace with a borrowed jacket and the strange, unsettling certainty that something had just shifted. The next morning, Tessa found white tulips on her desk at Rowan Advisory. No card, no note, just 12 perfect stems in a clear vase. Her colleague Jenna leaned over the cubicle wall, eyes wide. "Who's the secret admirer?" Tessa didn't answer. She was too busy staring at the flowers, remembering cedar-scented wool and a man who'd looked at her like she was visible. The second bouquet arrived on Wednesday. White tulips again, this time with a card. "Dinner? If you're free." Tessa stared at the handwriting, confident, slanted slightly right, and felt her pulse kick up. She'd returned Ethan's jacket to Hailtech's reception on Monday morning with a polite thank you note, fully expecting that to be the end of it. Billionaire CEOs didn't chase data analysts. That wasn't how the world worked. And yet here she was, holding proof that maybe, just this once, the world had glitched. Jenna appeared beside her desk, grinning. "Okay, spill." "Who's he?" "Nobody," Tessa said, which was technically true and completely false. Nobody sends tulips twice. Tessa tucked the card into her desk drawer and tried to focus on the Henderson portfolio analysis. But her mind kept wandering back to the terrace, to Ethan's quiet admission that he knew what it felt like to be an imposter. She typed out 3 different responses to the dinner invitation, deleted all of them, then finally settled on something simple. "Thursday at 7? I'll bring my own jacket this time." His reply came within minutes. "Perfect. I'll send a car." Thursday arrived faster than Tessa expected, and with it, a mild panic about what one wore to dinner with Ethan Hale. She settled on a gray dress, professional but not stiff, elegant but not trying too hard, and waited by her apartment window until a black sedan pulled up exactly at 7. The driver was polite, silent, and delivered her to a restaurant in Tribeca that had no sign, no menu visible from the street, just a single door and a hostess who seemed to be expecting her. Ethan was already seated at a corner table, the kind of spot where low lighting and acoustics turned conversation into confession. He stood when she approached, and Tessa noticed he ditched the suit jacket, rolled his shirt sleeves to the elbows. It made him look less CEO, more human. "You came," he said, like he genuinely doubted she would. "You sent tulips twice," Tessa replied, settling into her chair. "I figured you were either serious or a very committed stalker." He laughed, an actual laugh, not the polished sound she'd heard in interviews. "Fair assessment." They ordered wine. The sommelier recommended something French and expensive. Tessa pretended to understand the vintage. And then, as the first course arrived, some delicate thing involving scallops and microgreens, Ethan leaned forward. "I have a proposition," he said. Tessa set down her fork. "That's a concerning way to start a dinner. Hear me out." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "My mother is hosting a series of events over the next 2 months. Fundraisers, galas, board dinners, the kind of thing where appearance matters more than substance. She's been pressuring me to bring someone serious, someone who doesn't work in finance or tech or any of the circles she considers appropriate. And you thought of me?" "I thought of someone who looked comfortable being uncomfortable. Someone who didn't flinch when I was rude on a terrace. Someone who returned a jacket with a handwritten note instead of having an assistant do it." Tessa studied him. "What exactly are you asking?" Ethan's jaw tightened. "Accompany me to these events. Let people assume we're together. In exchange, I'll introduce you to investors, board members, anyone who might be useful for your career. Camille's brilliant, but she's also selective about who she puts in front of her network. This would fast-track you. You want me to be your fake girlfriend. I want you to be my ally. Tessa leaned back, processed the offer. What's the catch? My mother will test you. She'll want to know your background, your intentions, your net worth, metaphorical and literal. She'll try to find reasons you're unsuitable, and the media will notice. They always do. Rules? Tessa asked. Ethan pulled a folded paper from his pocket, handwritten surprisingly, and slid it across the table. Tessa scanned the list. Public appearances only, no private obligations. Either party can end the arrangement with 48 hours notice. No romantic expectations. Discretion required. You wrote this by hand, Tessa said. Lawyers make everything feel like a trap. She read the list again, noting what wasn't there. No non-disclosure agreement. No financial incentive, no clause about keeping quiet afterward. It was oddly honest. Why me? She asked finally. Ethan met her gaze, and for a moment the mask slipped again. Because you didn't ask me for anything. And because when I gave you my jacket, you said thank you like it mattered. Tessa thought about her mother's medical bills. About the promotion Camille had hinted at but never promised. About the way people at the gala had looked through her like she was glass. She thought about risk versus reward, dignity versus opportunity. I'll do it, she said, but I have one condition. Name it. If at any point this stops feeling honest, if it turns into performance instead of partnership, I walk. No questions, no guilt, no 48 hours. Ethan extended his hand across the table. Deal, Tessa shook it. His grip was firm, warm, and when their palms met, something electric hummed beneath her skin. Awareness, maybe, or warning. She couldn't tell which. If you're already hooked on where this goes, drop a comment below. Would you take the deal, or is this a red flag? And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss what happens when Tessa meets Ethan's mother. The first test came sooner than expected. Saturday evening. Black tie fundraiser at the plaza, benefiting some children's literacy initiative Ethan's mother had championed for decades. Tessa spent an hour getting ready. Borrowed dress again. This time navy silk with a modest neckline, and another 20 minutes convincing herself she wasn't making a catastrophic mistake. The car picked her up at 6. Ethan was waiting in the back seat, looking sharp in a tuxedo that probably came with its own insurance policy. He glanced up from his phone, did a double take. You look, he stopped himself. Presentable, Tessa supplied. I was going to say stunning, but presentable works too. She felt her cheeks warm. You clean up okay yourself. They arrived at the plaza just as photographers started setting up outside. Ethan offered his arm and Tessa took it, feeling the shift from private to performance. Cameras flashed. Someone shouted Ethan's name. He smiled, the practiced empty smile she'd seen in business magazines, and guided her through the entrance with the ease of someone who'd done this 1,000 times. Inside, the ballroom was a cathedral of wealth, gold leaf everywhere, chandeliers dripping crystal, a string quartet playing something classical and expensive. Tessa recognized faces from Bloomberg articles, fortune covers, the kind of people whose assistants had assistants. And there, near the champagne fountain, stood Catherine Hale. Ethan's mother was exactly what Tessa expected. Silver hair styled with surgical precision, a gown that probably cost more than Tessa's car, and an expression that could freeze vodka. Her gaze landed on Tessa with the warmth of an audit. Ethan, Catherine said, her voice carrying the kind of authority that came from decades of being obeyed. You're late. Traffic, Ethan replied smoothly. Mother, this is Tessa Reed. Tessa, my mother, Catherine Hale. Catherine extended a hand, cool, dry rings that could double as weapons. Miss Reed, how unexpected. Mrs. Hale, Tessa said, shaking firmly. Thank you for the invitation. I didn't invite you. Awkward silence stretched between them like taffy. Ethan's jaw tightened. Tessa felt the room watching, waiting for her to crumble or flee. Instead, she smiled. Then I'm especially grateful Ethan thought to include me. Literacy programs are close to my heart. My mother was a librarian before she retired. Catherine's eyebrow arched. Was? She had a stroke 2 years ago. She's recovering, but reading's difficult now. So programs like this feel personal. Something flickered in Catherine's expression. Not warmth exactly, but maybe a fraction less ice. I see, and what do you do, Miss Reed? Financial modeling, data analysis. I work for Camille Rowan. Camille, Catherine repeated, and now there was interest. She's formidable. She is. And you're dating my son. It wasn't a question. Tessa glanced at Ethan, who gave the tiniest nod, permission maybe, or encouragement. We're getting to know each other, Tessa said carefully. Catherine studied her for a long moment, then turned to Ethan. The Vanderbilts are at table 6. Don't embarrass me. She swept away, leaving a wake of Chanel No. 5 and disapproval. Ethan exhaled. That went better than expected. Your mother terrifies me. She terrifies everyone. It's her superpower. They navigated the room together, Ethan introducing Tessa to board members and donors with practiced ease. She shook hands, made small talk, laughed at jokes that weren't funny, and tried not to notice how naturally Ethan's hand settled at the small of her back. Possessive but not aggressive. Familiar but not presumptuous. Then disaster struck. Near the silent auction tables, a server carrying champagne flutes collided with a woman in silver lame. Glass shattered. Champagne sprayed. And the woman, face flushed, mascara running, turned on the server with venom. You idiot! This dress is vintage Halston. Do you have any idea what this cost? The server, a young man barely 20, stammered apologies. His hands shook as he tried to pick up glass shards. The woman kept berating him, voice rising, drawing a crowd. Ethan stiffened beside Tessa. He started, but Tessa was already moving. She crossed to the server, crouched down, heedless of her own dress, and started helping him gather the glass. Hey, she said quietly. It's okay. Accidents happen. The woman in silver sputtered. Excuse me, this is none of your... It was an accident, Tessa said, standing now, her voice calm but firm. She turned to the woman. And I'm sure your insurance will cover the cleaning. Or Ethan Hale can write you a check right now if that's easier. The crowd went silent. The woman's face cycled through several shades of red. Tessa held her ground, felt Ethan appear beside her. Happy to cover any damages, he said smoothly, already pulling out his wallet. He handed the woman a business card. Send the bill to my office. The woman took the card, mouth opening and closing like a landed fish, then turned and stalked away. The server looked up at Tessa, eyes shining. Thank you, he whispered. Tessa smiled. No problem. As the crowd dispersed, Ethan leaned close. That was either very brave or very reckless. Maybe both. He laughed, genuine, surprised. Remind me never to underestimate you. They spent the rest of the evening in something that felt dangerously close to partnership. Ethan deflected boring conversations. Tessa charmed his mother's friends with self-deprecating humor and sharp observations about market trends. And when the silent auction ended, Tessa's bid on a first edition Austin somehow winning, courtesy of Ethan's anonymous last-second counterbid, they slipped out before dessert, standing on Fifth Avenue as taxis blurred past. That was exhausting, Tessa said. You were perfect. She looked at him, at the way streetlights caught in his eyes, at the small smile tugging at his mouth. This arrangement, she said slowly. It's starting to feel less fake. Ethan's expression shifted, guarded, careful. Yeah, I noticed that too. The photo appeared on page 6 the next morning. Ethan Hale and mystery woman leaving the plaza, her hand tucked into the crook of his arm. The headline read, Wall Street's Ice King melts. Tessa's phone buzzed with text from Jenna, from colleagues, from her mother asking if that was her in the picture. And in her inbox, a single message from Ethan. Breakfast? We should talk. Breakfast turned into brunch, which turned into a 2-hour conversation at a corner cafe in Greenwich Village where nobody recognized Ethan Hale without his armor of suits and boardrooms. He wore jeans, actual denim, and a navy sweater that made him look younger, less carved from marble. Tessa ordered eggs Benedict and watched him fidget with his coffee cup, a nervous habit that felt like a secret. Page 6, he said finally, sliding his phone across the table. Tessa glanced at the screen. The photo was surprisingly flattering, her profile sharp against the plaza's lit facade, Ethan looking at her instead of the camera. The caption speculated about Wall Street's most eligible bachelor and the woman who thawed the Ice King. Dramatic, Tessa said. They always are. Ethan took his phone back. My PR team wants to release a statement. Something vague about enjoying each other's company and asking for privacy. And your mother? His jaw tightened. She called at 6 this morning. Had some thoughts. I can imagine. She wants to meet you again. Properly. Lunch at her townhouse next Wednesday. Tessa's stomach dropped. Just the three of us? And probably her lawyer, her accountant, and whoever else she thinks can intimidate you. He paused. You don't have to do this. We can call it off right now. Tessa thought about the way Catherine Hale's eyes had narrowed when she mentioned her mother's stroke. The way Ethan had relaxed when Tessa helped the server. The page 6 photo that made them look like they belonged together. She thought about her tiny apartment in Queens, her mother's medical bills, the promotion Camille kept hinting at. But mostly she thought about Ethan's hand at her back, the weight of his jacket, the feeling that maybe, just maybe, she wasn't performing anymore. I'll do lunch, she said, but I'm ordering the most expensive thing on the menu. Ethan grinned. Deal. The week passed in a blur of work and anticipation. Tessa dove into the Henderson portfolio, flagged 3 irregularities that made Camille raise her eyebrows and mutter, "Good catch," and tried not to check her phone every 20 minutes for messages from Ethan. They came. Anyway, photos of terrible coffee from board meetings, links to articles about literacy programs, a forwarded invitation to Haletech's quarterly gala with a note. Black tie. Prepare for warfare. Wednesday arrived cold and gray, the kind of October afternoon that smelled like distant rain. Catherine Hale's townhouse stood in the Upper East Side, 5 stories of limestone and old money, the kind of address that came with its own Wikipedia page. Tessa wore her best dress, charcoal, knee-length, the one she saved for client meetings, and rang the doorbell at exactly noon. A housekeeper answered, led her through a foyer lined with oil paintings and antique mirrors, up a curved staircase to a dining room that could seat 20 but was set for 3. Catherine sat at the head of the table, reading glasses perched on her nose, a leather folder open before her. She looked up as Tessa entered. Miss Reed. Punctual. I appreciate that. Mrs. Hale. Sit. Ethan will be late. He's always late when it matters. Tessa sat, feeling like a defendant at trial. A server appeared with water, disappeared. Catherine closed her folder. Let's dispense with pleasantries, Catherine said. I've had you researched. Tessa's pulse kicked. Of course you have. Columbia graduate. Top of your class. Started at Rowan Advisory 3 years ago. Solid performance reviews. No criminal record. No debt beyond student loans and your mother's medical expenses, which you've been covering on a $58,000 salary. Catherine's gaze sharpened. Admirable. Foolish, but admirable. My mother needed care, and you sacrificed your own financial stability to provide it. Very noble. Very impractical. Catherine leaned forward. Tell me, Miss Reed, what do you want from my son? Tessa met her eyes. Honestly, I'm still figuring that out. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. Tessa paused. Your son asked me to accompany him to events. To be visible. To make you and the media believe we're serious. That's the arrangement. And you agreed because? Because he was honest about what he wanted. And because I'm tired of being invisible. Something flickered across Catherine's face, recognition maybe, or memory. Before she could respond, footsteps echoed in the hallway. Ethan appeared, hair windblown, tie slightly askew. Sorry, he said, kissing his mother's cheek. Conference call ran long. Sit. Catherine commanded. Lunch was served. Dover sole, roasted vegetables, a white wine Tessa couldn't pronounce. Conversation danced around business. Haletech's new energy initiative, upcoming board elections, a scandal involving a competitor's CEO. Tessa listened more than she spoke, noting the way Ethan deflected his mother's barbs, the way Catherine's questions felt like chess moves. Then dessert arrived. Lemon tart, delicate and tart, and Catherine set down her fork. Ethan tells me you're attending the Haletech Gala, she said to Tessa. I am. It's our most visible event. Investors, press, board members, everyone who matters will be there. You'll be photographed extensively, scrutinized. I assumed as much. Catherine's lips thinned. And if I asked you to reconsider, to end this arrangement before it becomes a spectacle? Tessa felt Ethan tense beside her. The room went quiet, just the distant hum of traffic, the tick of an antique clock. She thought about walking away, about returning to her safe, invisible life. Then she thought about Ethan's smile on the terrace, the way he'd defended the server without hesitation, the tulips. With respect, Mrs. Hale, Tessa said carefully. Your son is an adult. And so am I. Whatever this is, arrangement or relationship, it's ours to navigate. Catherine studied her for a long moment. Then impossibly she smiled. A small, tight smile, but real. Good, she said. I was hoping you'd have a spine. Ethan choked on his wine. Tessa blinked. I beg your pardon? Ethan needs someone who won't fold when pressed. Someone who won't be bought, flattered, or intimidated. Catherine stood, gathering her folder. The gala is next Saturday. I expect you both to be flawless. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a board meeting. She swept out, leaving Tessa and Ethan staring at each other across half-eaten lemon tarts. Did I just pass a test? Tessa asked. I think you did. Your mother is terrifying. I know. Ethan reached across the table, his hand covering hers. Thank you. For not running. His palm was warm, solid. Tessa felt her pulse in her throat. I don't run easily, she said. That evening, a package arrived at Tessa's apartment. A garment bag from Bergdorf Goodman with a note in Ethan's handwriting. For the gala. No arguments. Inside was a gown the color of midnight, silk that felt like water, a price tag she didn't dare look at. Tessa hung it in her closet, stared at it for 10 minutes, then called Ethan. I can't accept this, she said. You can, he replied. And you will. Because I want you to feel like you belong. She didn't argue. The Hailtech Gala occupied the entire top floor of the Mandarin Oriental. Floor-to-ceiling windows framing Manhattan like a jewel box. Cocktail tables scattered beneath installations of light and glass. A string quartet playing something modern and haunting. Tessa arrived with Ethan just after 7, the midnight gown fitting perfectly. Her hair styled by a professional Ethan had insisted on sending. She felt like an imposter in a different way now. Not invisible, but hyper-visible, every eye tracking her entrance. Ethan's hand found the small of her back again. Breathe, he murmured. I'm breathing. You're vibrating. She laughed despite herself. Your fault. This dress costs more than my car. Your car is 12 years old and held together by optimism. It has character. They moved through the crowd. Ethan introducing her to investors, journalists, board members whose names Tessa recognized from financial news. She shook hands, answered questions about Rowan Advisory, deflected inquiries about how you two met with practiced vagueness. The room hummed with wealth and ambition, everyone angling for advantage, but Tessa noticed something else. Ethan was different here. Sharper, more guarded. The version of himself she'd seen at the cafe, relaxed, almost playful, had vanished behind layers of CEO armor. Near the bar, a man in a silver tie approached, tall, handsome in an obvious way, smile too wide. Ethan Hale, been a while. Ethan's expression went flat. Marcus, heard you finally found someone willing to put up with you. Marcus's gaze slid to Tessa, lingered just long enough to be rude. Marcus Chen, I run Chen Capital. Tessa Reed, the data analyst. Yeah, I saw the page 6 photo. His tone dripped condescension. Cute story. Billionaire and the working girl. Very Cinderella. Tessa felt Ethan tense. Before he could respond, she smiled sweetly. Cute, she echoed. Like your fund's Q3 returns. Down 18%, wasn't it? I read your investor letter. Interesting spin on we lost a lot of money. Marcus's smile froze. Tessa works for Camille Rowan, Ethan said, voice smooth as silk. She reads everything. Remembers more. Marcus's face cycled through several emotions, surprise, anger, embarrassment, before settling on forced neutrality. Well, enjoy the evening. He retreated toward the canapé table. Ethan steered Tessa toward the windows, away from the crowd. That was reckless, spectacular. He laughed, low and genuine. Remind me never to make you angry. I'll send you a memo. They stood by the glass, watching the city lights blur and refract. Tessa felt the adrenaline fading, replaced by something quieter. She glanced at Ethan's reflection in the window, the sharp lines of his profile, the way his shoulders had finally relaxed. You're different at these things, she said. Different how? Colder, more CEO-ish. Ethan's jaw tightened. It's the job. You can't show weakness. Can't let people think you're anything other than untouchable. Sounds exhausting. It is. He turned to face her fully. That's why the terrace felt like relief. You didn't want anything from me. Didn't need me to be Ethan Hale, billionaire genius. He paused. You just let me be tired. Tessa's chest tightened. I'm still that person. I know. Before either could say more, a commotion erupted near the entrance. Raised voices, security guards moving quickly. Ethan frowned, excused himself. Tessa followed at a distance and saw a young woman, early 20s, blonde, mascara streaking her face, arguing with security. I need to see Ethan Hale, the woman was saying, voice cracking. Please, it's about my brother. He worked for Hale Tech and they fired him and now he can't afford his medication and Security moved to escort her out. Ethan stepped forward. Wait, he said. Everyone froze. Ethan approached the woman carefully, his voice low enough that Tessa had to strain to hear. What's your brother's name? David Chen. He was a developer. Level 3. They said he violated NDA protocols, but he didn't. I swear he was just David Chen. Ethan's expression shifted. Recognition, then something harder. I remember the case. Your brother leaked code to a competitor. He didn't. Someone framed him. Set him up. And now the woman's voice broke. He has diabetes, type 1. Without insurance, the insulin costs. I know what it costs. Ethan pulled out his phone, typed quickly. What's your number? The woman stammered it out. Ethan's fingers flew across the screen. I'm sending you my assistant's contact. She'll arrange a meeting tomorrow. We'll review the case. If your brother was wrongly terminated, we'll fix it. If not, he paused. We'll still cover 6 months of medication while he finds new employment. Fair? The woman stared, tears streaming. Why would you? Because the system isn't always right. And because my father died of complications from type 1. So I know what you're facing. Tessa's heart stuttered. She'd read about Ethan's father. Cardiac arrest at 59, listed in obituaries as sudden, but never the underlying cause. She watched Ethan guide the woman toward a quiet corner. Watched him speak to security with quiet authority. Watched him be human in a room full of sharks. When he returned, Tessa didn't say anything, just reached out and squeezed his hand. Your father, she said softly. Long time ago. I'm sorry. Ethan nodded, looked away. The gala's almost over. Want to get out of here? Yes. They left through a service exit, skipping the official goodbye rounds, and ended up walking through Central Park, despite the October cold and Tessa's impractical heels. Ethan draped his jacket over her shoulders again, and they walked in silence until they reached a bench overlooking the lake. This is becoming a habit, Tessa said. Gesturing to the jacket, I don't mind, they sat. The park was quiet, the city's hum distant. Tessa felt the weight of the evening settling. The performance. The confrontation with Marcus, the woman at the door. Ethan's quiet revelation about his father. You're a better person than you pretend to be, she said. Ethan's laugh was bitter. Don't bet on it. I'm serious. You could have had security throw that woman out. Instead, you helped her. Basic decency isn't heroism, Tessa. It is when you're the only one showing it. He looked at her then. Really looked, and Tessa felt something shift. The arrangement cracking. The performance slipping. His hand found hers on the bench between them. Fingers threading together like it was the most natural thing in the world. This is getting complicated, he said quietly. I know. I don't want to hurt you. Then don't. Monday morning, Tessa's desk phone rang. An internal call from Camille Rowan's office. My office. Now, Camille said and hung up. Tessa's stomach dropped. She walked the 30 feet to Camille's corner office. Knocked twice. Camille sat behind her desk, tablet in hand, expression unreadable. Sit, she commanded. Tessa sat. Camille turned the tablet around, showing a photo from the gala. Tessa and Ethan by the windows, their reflections doubled in the glass. Page 6 again, Camille said. Along with Business Insider, Bloomberg, and the Wall Street Journal. They're calling you the woman who humanized Ethan Hale. She paused. Tell me this isn't going to blow up in your face. Tessa met her boss's gaze. I'm handling it. Good, Camille said. Because I'm putting you on the Thornton merger. Lead analyst. Don't make me regret it. Tessa walked back to her desk in a daze, mind racing. The promotion she'd wanted. The opportunity she'd been chasing. And all it took was becoming visible. Want to know what happens when Tessa's carefully built walls start crumbling? Drop a comment and let me know if you're Team Tessa or Team Run while you can. And hit subscribe, the next part gets real. The call came on a Thursday, 3 weeks into what Tessa had stopped thinking of as an arrangement and started thinking of as something unnamed and dangerous. She was in her apartment reviewing files for the Thornton merger when her phone buzzed. Not Ethan, but the hospital. Miss Reed, this is Mercy General. Your mother was brought in an hour ago. She's stable, but you should come. Tessa's vision blurred. The rest of the conversation was static. Something about confusion, weakness on one side, possible TIA. She grabbed her coat, her keys, her phone, and ran. The subway took forever. The hospital smelled like antiseptic and fear. And when she finally reached her mother's room, Marion Reed lay small and gray against white sheets, oxygen tube beneath her nose, left hand curled and unresponsive. Mom, Tessa whispered. Marion's eyes opened, unfocused, searching. Her mouth moved, but no words came. Tessa took her right hand, felt the tremor, the papery skin. A nurse appeared, explained about the stroke, the scans, the waiting. Tessa nodded, processed nothing, just held her mother's hand and tried not to fall apart. Time dissolved. Hours passed. Doctors came and went. Tessa texted work, texted Jenna, didn't text Ethan because what would she even say? Hey, fake boyfriend, real crisis, can't do gala next week. At some point, a nurse brought terrible coffee. Tessa drank it anyway. Then around midnight, Ethan appeared in the doorway. Tessa looked up, confused. What are you? Jenna called me, he said quietly. Told me what happened. You didn't have to come, I know. He pulled up a chair beside hers, sat. Didn't ask questions, didn't offer platitudes. Just sat there in his expensive suit, rumpled now, tie loosened, and waited. Tessa felt something break inside her chest. She's all I have. I know. The doctor said it's a TIA mini-stroke. She might recover most function or she might not. They're running more tests. Her voice cracked. I can't afford more tests. Ethan's jaw tightened. Don't worry about cost. I can't let you, Tessa. He turned to face her fully. Let me help. This isn't part of the arrangement. Fuck the arrangement. The profanity hung between them, raw and honest. Tessa stared at him, at the exhaustion in his eyes, at the way he'd shown up without being asked. She thought about the terrace, the gala, the bench in Central Park. She thought about his hand in hers, the weight of his jacket, the tulips. Why are you here? She asked. Ethan's expression softened. Because when someone I care about is hurting, I show up. It's that simple. Someone you care about? Yeah. Tessa felt tears prick her eyes. Not from fear, but from something else. Relief, maybe. Or recognition. This stopped being fake, didn't it? Weeks ago. Before she could respond, Marion stirred. Her eyes opened, focused on Tessa, then drifted to Ethan. Her right hand squeezed Tessa's, weak but deliberate. Mom, this is Ethan, Tessa said softly. He's important. Marion's gaze sharpened. Even half paralyzed, she managed to look skeptical. Ethan leaned forward, his voice gentle. Mrs. Reed, I'm sorry we're meeting like this. Your daughter talks about you constantly. The library work, the book collection, how you taught her to read financial statements before she learned long division. Marion's mouth quirked, almost a smile. Tessa laughed through tears. She also said, You're stubborn, Ethan continued. So I'm guessing you're going to fight through this recovery just to prove the doctor's wrong. Marion's squeeze tightened. Yes. They stayed through the night. Tessa dozing in the chair. Ethan making quiet calls to arrange private specialists, better rooms, whatever Marion needed. Around 4 a.m., Tessa woke to find him watching her, expression unguarded. You should go home, she murmured. Not yet. Ethan, I'm staying, Tessa, get used to it. So she did. Let herself lean into him. Let his arm curve around her shoulders, let the warmth seep into her bones. And when morning came, gray and cold through hospital windows, she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Not alone. The next days blurred together. Marion stabilized, moved to a rehabilitation wing. Tessa split time between hospital and work, running on caffeine and determination. Ethan appeared every evening, sometimes with food, sometimes with books for Marion, always with his quiet, steady presence. He met her mother's physical therapist, asked intelligent questions about recovery timelines, and somehow arranged for a top neurologist to consult without making it feel like charity. One evening, while Marion napped, Tessa and Ethan sat in the hospital cafeteria, fluorescent lights harsh, Coffee worse than usual. I need to pay you back, Tessa said. No. Ethan, this isn't transactional. His voice was firm. Your mother needed help. I was able to provide it. End of discussion. Tessa stared at her terrible coffee. Why are you doing this? Ethan was quiet for a long moment. Then he pulled something from his pocket, a small photograph, edges worn. He slid it across the table. Tessa picked it up, saw a younger Ethan, maybe 12, standing beside a man with kind eyes and dark hair going gray. My father, Ethan said. Thomas Hale. He built Hale Tech from nothing. Started in a garage, typical startup story. By the time I was 10, we had government contracts and a Manhattan office. He paused. He was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes when I was 8. Managed it well for years. Then he missed an insulin dose during a merger negotiation, went into DKA. By the time they got him to the hospital, his organs were failing. Tessa's throat tightened. Ethan, he died thinking he'd failed. That missing one dose meant he wasn't strong enough, disciplined enough. And I watched my mother turn into stone, watched her decide vulnerability was weakness. He took the photo back, tucked it away, so when I see someone fighting to take care of a parent, sacrificing everything to keep them alive, I recognize it. And I help, because nobody helped us. Tessa reached across the table, took his hand. I'm sorry, don't be. Just let me do this, she nodded, because what else could she do? They sat in silence, hands linked across cheap formica, surrounded by the smell of industrial disinfectant and overcooked vegetables. And Tessa realized something that should have terrified her but didn't. She was falling for Ethan Hale. Not the billionaire. Not the CEO, but the man who showed up at midnight and stayed. 2 weeks later, Marion was discharged to a rehabilitation facility. Nicer than anything insurance would have covered. But Tessa had stopped arguing about cost. The day before discharge, a package arrived for Marion. A leather-bound first edition of Pride and Prejudice. Inscription on the flyleaf reading, for the librarian who taught her daughter to be fearless. Oh. Marion held the book with her good hand, traced the inscription, then looked at Tessa with an expression that said everything. He's good, she managed, words still slurred but clear. Keep him. Tessa laughed and cried simultaneously. I'm trying, Mom. December arrived cold and unforgiving, draping Manhattan in early darkness and the threat of snow. Tessa's life had recalibrated around 3 fixed points: work, her mother's rehabilitation visits, and Ethan. The arrangement had officially ended. No more scheduled appearances, no more performance. What remained was something messier and infinitely more real. Dinner at hole-in-the-wall restaurants, late-night calls when insomnia struck, weekends spent reading beside Marion at the rehab center, while Ethan asked her mother's opinion on everything from market trends to Austen adaptations. Catherine Hale had noticed. She'd invited them both to a pre-Christmas dinner at the townhouse. Just family, she'd said, which felt like either acceptance or a trap. Tessa wore the same charcoal dress from their first lunch, refused Ethan's offer to buy her something new. They arrived together, snow just starting to fall, and found Catherine in the library instead of the dining room. Change of plans, Catherine announced. Cook has the flu. We're ordering Chinese. Ethan blinked. You're ordering takeout? Don't look so shocked. I'm capable of using a phone. She handed him a menu. Decide what you want. Miss Reed, bourbon or wine? Bourbon, Tessa said, surprising herself. Catherine's lips twitched. Good choice. They ate on the library floor, Catherine's idea absurdly, sprawled on antique rugs with containers of lo mein and kung pao chicken. It was the most surreal evening of Tessa's life. Catherine Hale, society matriarch, using chopsticks and telling stories about Ethan's childhood with something approaching warmth. Ethan, relaxed in jeans and a sweater, laughing at his mother's impressions of stuffy board members. And Tessa feeling like maybe she'd passed some final test without realizing it. Your mother's improving? Catherine asked between bites. She is. Speech is coming back. Left side still weak, but the therapists are optimistic. Good. Catherine set down her chopsticks. Ethan tells me you've been managing everything: work, hospital visits, caretaking. That's not sustainable, Tessa stiffened. I'm handling it. I'm sure you are. But handling isn't thriving. Catherine pulled a business card from her pocket, slid it across the rug. This is my personal physician. He coordinates home health aides, medical equipment, whatever's needed. Call him. Tell him I sent you. Tessa stared at the card. Mrs. Hale, Catherine. We're eating takeout on the floor. You can use my first name. Catherine, Tessa amended. I can't accept. You can and you will. Consider it a gift from one daughter to another. I cared for my own mother through dementia. I know what it costs. Financially, emotionally, physically. Don't be stubborn. Tessa looked at Ethan, who nodded slightly. She took the card. Thank you. Later. After Catherine had retired and Tessa and Ethan stood on the townhouse steps watching snow accumulate, Tessa turned to him. Your mother is terrifying and wonderful in equal measure. Welcome to my life. She called me a daughter. She did. Ethan brushed snow from her hair, his touch gentle. Is that okay? Tessa thought about it, about Catherine's sharp edges and surprising softness, about the bourbon and the business card, about feeling like maybe, possibly, she belonged somewhere. Yeah, she said. It's okay. They walked through falling snow, no destination, just moving. The city felt muffled, quieter. Tessa's phone buzzed. A text from the rehab center saying Marion had walked 10 steps unassisted today. She showed Ethan, watched his face light up. That's incredible. She's fighting. Like her daughter. They stopped at a corner, waiting for the light. Ethan's hand found hers, their fingers lacing together. Tessa looked up at him. Snow catching in his dark hair, his breath clouding in the cold, and felt her heart do something dangerous and inevitable. Ethan, she said. Yeah? This isn't fake anymore. I know. I mean, it's really, really not fake. He smiled. I know, Tessa. So what do we do? Instead of answering, he kissed her. Right there on the corner of Park Avenue and 73rd, with snow falling and taxis honking and the city oblivious around them. His mouth was warm, certain, and when Tessa kissed him back, she tasted bourbon and winter and something that felt dangerously like forever. When they broke apart, Ethan rested his forehead against hers. We stopped pretending, he said quietly. We stopped worrying about arrangements and appearances. We just are what? Together. Really together. Tessa felt tears prick her eyes. Happy ones for once. Your mother will have opinions. She already does. She approves. The media will have opinions. They always do. I don't care. You're bored? Tessa. He cupped her face, thumbs brushing her cheekbones. I'm choosing you. Publicly, privately, in every way that matters. Is that what you want? She thought about the terrace where this started. About white tulips and borrowed jackets and midnight hospital visits. She thought about Ethan at his father's grave, a detail he'd shared during one of those late-night calls, promising to be better, kinder, more human. She thought about how he'd kept that promise without knowing she'd witnessed it. Yes, she said, that's what I want. They went back to Ethan's penthouse, all glass and steel and views of the glittering city, and sat on the floor by the windows, just like they'd done at his mother's. Ethan made tea. Tessa stole one of his sweaters. They talked about everything. Marion's progress, the Thornton merger, Catherine's surprising vulnerability, the upcoming Hailtech board meeting where Ethan planned to propose a new clean energy initiative. Tell me about the initiative, Tessa said. Ethan's eyes lit up. Pure passion, no performance. Clean energy infrastructure. Practical, scalable, affordable. Something that actually helps instead of just looking good on earnings reports. Ambitious. Impossible according to the board. They want short-term profits, not long-term change. He paused. But I think we can do both. I just need the data to prove it. Tessa sat up straighter. What kind of data? Market analysis, cost projections, efficiency modeling. Everything the board needs to see this isn't charity, it's good business. I could help with that. Tessa, you're already swamped with the Thornton merger. I want to help. She met his gaze. If you're serious about this, about changing how Hailtech operates, I want to be part of it. Ethan studied her, and Tessa saw the moment he understood. This wasn't about impressing him or securing her place. This was about partnership, about building something real together. Okay, he said. Partner. They shook on it, formality giving way to laughter, laughter giving way to another kiss that turned into several more. And later, curled together on Ethan's absurdly comfortable couch with the city spread out below them like a promise, Tessa felt something settle in her chest. Not the end of fear, but the beginning of trust. The Wall Street Journal article appeared 3 days later. Ethan Hale goes public with relationship, announces green initiative. The photo showed them leaving Catherine's townhouse, snow falling, hands linked. The accompanying piece was surprisingly warm. Speculation about the woman who softened Wall Street's hardest heart, mixed with analysis of HaleTech's proposed Clear Core initiative. Tessa's inbox exploded with messages. From Camille, well played. From Jenna, you're dating a billionaire and didn't tell me? From colleagues she barely knew. And from Catherine Hale, a single line reading, Bourbon at mine Friday. We have things to discuss. Tessa showed the message to Ethan. What does she want to discuss? Probably whether you're strong enough to handle what comes next, he said. Are you? Tessa thought about it, about the arrangement that became real, the performance that became partnership, the unwanted girl who'd somehow become chosen. Yeah, she said. I am. If you're invested in Tessa and Ethan's journey, hit that subscribe button. The next half gets intense. And comment below, should Tessa have kept it fake, or is real always worth the risk? The Clear Core initiative proposal went to HaleTech's board on a Tuesday in mid-January. Tessa had spent 6 weeks building the data model, nights and weekends on top of her Thornton merger work, refining projections until they were bulletproof. Ethan presented at 10 a.m. Tessa waited at Rowan Advisory, refreshing her email every 30 seconds, trying to focus on quarterly reports and failing spectacularly. The call came at 2 p.m. They tabled it, Ethan said, voice flat. What? Board wants more data, more projections, more evidence it won't tank short-term stock prices. He exhaled sharply. Translation, they're afraid of change. Tessa's chest tightened. So we get them more data. It's not about data, Tessa, it's about control. They see Clear Core as a threat to their dividends and their legacy operations. Pause. They also see you as a threat. Me? Several board members questioned whether my judgment's compromised, whether I'm making decisions based on emotion instead of logic. His tone went bitter. Whether my relationship with a data analyst is clouding my objectivity. Tessa felt ice spread through her veins. They're using me against you. They're trying to. Then I'll step back. Distance myself from HaleTech projects. Make it clear I'm not influencing. No. Ethan's voice was steel. You built this proposal. Your analysis is flawless. I'm not letting them erase your work because they're uncomfortable with us. Ethan, I mean it. This is exactly what they want. To make you doubt yourself, make us doubt each other. We're not giving them that. But doubt had already taken root. That evening, Tessa met Jenna for drinks at a wine bar in Chelsea, needing perspective outside the Ethan-shaped bubble her life had become. So let me get this straight, Jenna said, third glass in hand. Billionaire boyfriend's board is sabotaging both your relationship and your professional credibility simultaneously? Essentially. That's some advanced level bullshit. It gets worse. Tessa pulled out her phone, showed Jenna an email she'd received that afternoon. Anonymous, sent to her work address. Subject line reading, thought you should know. The email contained links. Business Insider articles about Ethan's past relationships. 3 women over the past decade. All accomplished professionals. All relationships ending within a year. Attached was a spreadsheet documenting each woman's career trajectory post-breakup. Lateral moves, failed ventures. One who'd left finance entirely. Someone wants you scared, Jenna said slowly. It's working. Okay, but correlation isn't causation. Maybe these women's careers had nothing to do with Ethan. Or maybe getting involved with him is professional suicide. Tessa took a long drink. What if the board's right? What if I'm too close to see clearly? Jenna reached across the table, gripped Tessa's hand. Listen to me. You're the smartest person I know. You don't make decisions based on emotion. You make them based on data. If you believe in Clear Core, it's because the numbers work. Don't let these assholes make you doubt yourself. But doubt once seated grew fast. Tessa went home to her apartment, smaller, shabbier, more hers than Ethan's gleaming penthouse, and stared at the Clear Core files spread across her kitchen table. She pulled up the email again, clicked through the links, followed each former relationship's paper trail. Sarah Mitchell, brilliant economist. Dated Ethan for 18 months, now teaching at a small liberal arts college. Jennifer Zhao, tech entrepreneur. Dated Ethan for 14 months. Startup failed 6 months post-breakup. Alexis Grant, corporate lawyer. Dated Ethan for 10 months, left her firm for an in-house position that paid half her former salary. The pattern wasn't perfect, but it was there. And underneath all the articles, buried in a subreddit Tessa really shouldn't have been reading, was a comment. Ethan Hale dates smart women and makes them doubt their intelligence. Classic billionaire narcissism. Tessa slammed her laptop closed. She was being paranoid. Ethan wasn't manipulating her. He'd shown up at the hospital, met her mother, helped without asking for credit. He'd kissed her in the snow and meant it. But what if the board was right? What if she couldn't be objective anymore? Her phone buzzed, Ethan calling. She let it go to voicemail. He called again. On the 4th try, she answered. Tessa, what's wrong? Nothing. Just tired. You're lying. His voice was gentle. Talk to me. I received an email today, anonymous, about your past relationships. Silence. Then what did it say? That you have a pattern. That women who date you end up professionally diminished. That's not... He stopped. Okay, you want the truth? Sarah left finance because she hated it. We stayed friends for years. Jennifer's startup failed because of bad timing and worse investors. Nothing to do with me. And Alexis took the in-house job because she wanted to spend more time with her daughter. But sure, someone can spin that into a conspiracy if they're trying to scare you. Why would someone do that? Because the board knows I'm serious about ClearCore. And they know I'm serious about you, so they're attacking both. Pause. Tessa, come over, please. Let's talk face to face. I can't tonight. Tomorrow, then? I need time to think. Think about what? Everything. Her voice cracked. Us, the initiative. Whether I'm helping or hurting your chances. Tessa, I have to go. She hung up before he could respond, then turned off her phone entirely, sat in her dark apartment surrounded by data and doubt, trying to separate logic from fear. The problem was she couldn't. The next morning, Page 6 published a photo. Ethan leaving his office building at midnight, expression thunderous with a headline reading, Trouble in Paradise? Hale looks grim amid board drama. The article speculated about ClearCore's rejection, about Tessa's influence, about whether the relationship would survive professional pressure. Camille called Tessa into her office at 9 a.m. sharp. You're compromised, Camille said bluntly. I'm pulling you from Thornton. You'll stay on other accounts, but nothing that intersects with Hale Tech or their competitors. Tessa's stomach dropped. Camille, this isn't punishment. It's protection. If you're going to date Ethan Hale, you need to be above reproach professionally. Otherwise, his enemies will use you to destroy both of you. Camille's expression softened fractionally. I like you, Reed. You're brilliant. Don't let anyone, including him, dim that brilliance. Tessa walked back to her desk in a daze. Her phone, powered back on, showed 17 missed calls from Ethan. She didn't return any of them. Should Tessa trust her gut or trust Ethan? Drop your thoughts below. I'm reading every comment. And if you're not subscribed yet, now's the time. The next 5 blocks show whether love wins or logic does. 3 days of silence stretched into a week. Tessa threw herself into work. Non-Hale Tech accounts, safe territory. Numbers that didn't remind her of Ethan's voice explaining clean energy economics at 2 a.m. She avoided his calls, deleted his texts unread, and told herself this was necessary, professional, smart. Jenna thought she was being an idiot. You're running, Jenna said over lunch at their usual deli. I'm being realistic. You're being scared. Tessa stabbed at her salad. His board is right. I can't be objective about ClearCore. Every analysis I run, I'm thinking about how it affects him, not just whether the data's sound. So, that's called caring about someone. It's called compromised judgment. Jenna set down her fork. Okay, let's logic this out. You built the ClearCore model before you were serious about Ethan, right? Back when it was still fake dating? Yes. And the numbers were solid then? Yes. Have the fundamentals changed? No, but wait, then your analysis is sound. You're just psyching yourself out because some anonymous coward sent you a scary email. Jenna leaned forward. Tessa, you've been unwanted your whole life. You've spent 28 years waiting for someone to choose you. And now someone brilliant and flawed and powerful, and you're finding reasons to push him away before he can leave first. Tessa's throat tightened. It is. I've known you since sophomore year. I've watched you sabotage every good thing because you don't believe you deserve it. Jenna's voice softened. For once in your life, let yourself be chosen. But wanting to believe and actually believing were different countries with no bridge between them. That evening, returning to her apartment, Tessa found Ethan waiting outside her building. He looked terrible. Rumpled suit, shadows under his eyes, expression that belonged to someone who hadn't slept in days. You can't keep ignoring me, he said. I'm not. I'm processing. For a week? Without a single conversation? Tessa fumbled with her keys. Ethan, I'm trying to protect both of us. From what? From the board. From the media. From me making decisions based on feelings instead of facts. That's bullshit. His voice was rough. You're the most rigorous analyst I know. You don't make emotional decisions, you make informed ones. Then why did Camille pull me from Thornton? Ethan's expression shifted. She what? Pulled me from the merger. Said I'm compromised. Said dating you makes me a liability. Tessa's voice cracked. Maybe she's right. Maybe everyone's right and I'm the only one too blind to see it. Or maybe they're all scared of what we could do. Together. Or maybe I'm the data analyst who fell for her subject and lost all credibility. Ethan flinched like she'd slapped him. Is that what you think this is? Me manipulating you? I don't know what to think anymore. Then think about this. He stepped closer, voice dropping. I showed up at the hospital when your mother was dying and I didn't ask for anything. I introduced you to my mother and didn't flinch when she interrogated you. I kissed you in the snow and meant every second of it. None of that was manipulation. It was me choosing you. Publicly, repeatedly, without conditions. Tessa felt tears threaten. Your past relationships ended for normal reasons. Bad timing, different priorities, incompatibility, not some sinister pattern. He ran a hand through his hair. Sarah sends me Christmas cards. Jennifer's startup is actually doing great now, she pivoted. Alexis is happy. But sure, someone can weaponize the past if they're trying to separate us. Why would they do that? Because ClearCore threatens their profits. Because you're not from their world and that scares them. Because together we're asking them to change and powerful people hate change. His jaw tightened. But mostly because they know if they make you doubt yourself, I lose my best ally and they win. Tessa wanted to believe him. Wanted to step forward and let him hold her and pretend the last week hadn't happened. But doubt was a virus and it had infected everything. I need space, she said quietly. How much space? I don't know. Enough to think clearly. And if I give you that space and you decide I'm not worth the risk, then at least it's my decision. Not one made by fear or pressure or feelings I can't trust. Ethan's expression crumbled just for a second, before the CEO mask slid back. Okay, space, but Tessa? He met her eyes. I'm not giving up on us. Even if you do, he left. Tessa watched him walk away, shoulders tight, hands shoved in pockets. She went inside, climbed 5 flights to her apartment, and collapsed on her couch. Her phone buzzed. A text from her mother's rehab center. Marion wanted to video call. Tessa answered. Her mother appeared on screen, seated in the therapy room, left side stronger now, speech clearer. You look terrible, Marion said. Thanks, Mom. What happened? So Tessa told her. About the board, the email, Camille's decision, the fight with Ethan. Marion listened without interrupting. That old librarian patience fully intact. You're scared, Marion said finally. I'm being realistic. You're catastrophizing. There's a difference. Marion shifted in her chair. Tessa, when I had the stroke, you didn't hesitate. You showed up. You fought. You didn't worry about whether you could afford it or whether it made professional sense. You just loved me enough to stay. That's different. It's not. Love is always a risk. Always a choice to stay when running would be easier. Marion's gaze sharpened. That young man showed up at the hospital. He brought me Jane Austen. He asked about my life before the stroke, not just after. He sees you, Tessa, really sees you. Are you really going to walk away from that because some anonymous coward sent you an email? Tessa wiped her eyes. What if I'm wrong about him? Then you'll survive. You always do. Marion's voice gentled. But what if you're right? What if he's exactly who he seems to be? Someone choosing you not despite your ordinariness but because of your extraordinariness. Can you afford to lose that because you're too scared to trust it? After the call ended, Tessa sat in silence. Thought about Ethan on the terrace, tired and honest. Ethan at the gala, defending a stranger. Ethan in the hospital, staying without being asked. Ethan kissing her in the snow like she was the answer to a question he'd been asking his whole life. She pulled up the ClearCore files on her laptop, reviewed every projection, every assumption, every data point, looking for bias, for emotional reasoning, for proof her judgment was compromised. The model was sound. Conservative even. The efficiency projections were based on peer-reviewed research. The cost analysis assumed worst-case scenarios. The market timing was backed by 3 independent consultants Tessa had hired with her own money. This wasn't emotion. This was excellent work. Work she'd done before feelings complicated everything. Jenna was right. She was sabotaging herself. Tessa reached for her phone to call Ethan, then stopped. Because across the room, slipped under her apartment door, was an envelope. Cream-colored, expensive paper. Her name written in elegant script. She crossed the room, picked it up, opened it. Inside was a letter. Handwritten, not from Ethan. Dear Miss Reed, we have not been formally introduced, though you know my grandson well. I am writing because I believe you deserve information that others have deliberately withheld. The email you received about Ethan's past relationships was commissioned by 3 members of Hailtech's, or specifically Marcus Chen, Richard Vanderbilt, and Helena Cross. I know this because Mr. Chen's assistant is the daughter of my former housekeeper, and she felt the situation warranted whistleblowing. These board members see ClearCore as a threat to their short-term stock options. They see you as Ethan's weakness. Their strategy is simple: isolate him, discredit his judgment, and force him to choose between professional credibility and personal happiness. They assume he'll choose the former. I assume he'll choose you. And I assume you're strong enough to handle what comes next. Enclosed is a flash drive containing email correspondence between the 3 board members discussing their strategy, including the decision to pressure Camille Rowan to distance you from Hailtech-adjacent work. Also included are financial documents showing Marcus Chen's investments in Hailtech's competitors, a clear conflict of interest he has failed to disclose. Use this information as you see fit. But understand, fighting for someone you love means accepting that others will fight against you. The question is whether you're willing to fight back. Regards, Thomas Hale, Sr. Tessa stared at the signature. Thomas Hale, Ethan's father, who'd been dead for 15 years. She read the letter again and again, then noticed the smaller text at the bottom. P.S. This was written before my death and held in trust by my attorney, to be delivered if my son ever found someone worth fighting for. My wife was instructed to confirm that moment. Apparently she believes you are that someone. Don't prove her wrong. Tessa's hand shook. She found the flash drive taped to the back of the envelope, plugged it into her laptop. The files were exactly as described. Emails, financial disclosures, documented conflicts of interest. Evidence. Real. Verifiable. Devastating evidence. The triad was complete. Physical evidence, the flash drive. Witness statement, the assistant's testimony included as a notarized document. And validation of authority, timestamps from Hailtech's internal email system, authenticated by digital signatures. This wasn't just proof of a conspiracy. It was proof that she'd been right to trust her judgment. Right to believe in ClearCore. Right to believe in Ethan. She grabbed her phone, called Ethan. He answered on the first ring. Tessa? I'm sorry, she said. I'm so sorry. I was scared and I let them make me doubt everything. But I found Ethan, I found evidence. Your father left me evidence. What? I'll explain everything. But first I need you to know I trust you. I trust us, and I'm ready to fight, silently. Then Ethan's voice rough with emotion. Say that again. I'm ready to fight. Not that part. The part about trust. Tessa smiled through tears. I trust you, Ethan Hale. I trust your judgment and your heart and the fact that you see me as more than unwanted. I trust that we're building something real, and I'm done letting other people's fear control my choices. I'm coming over. Okay. Right now. I'll be here. 15 minutes later, Ethan arrived, breathless from running, hair wild, eyes bright. Tessa opened the door and he pulled her into his arms, held her like she was the only solid thing in a tilting world. Don't do that again, he whispered against her hair. Do what? Disappear. I can handle the board, the media, all of it. But I can't handle losing you. Tessa pulled back just enough to meet his eyes. You're not losing me. We're in this together. Partners, remember? Partners, he agreed. She showed him the letter, the flash drive, the evidence, watched his expression cycle through shock, anger, and something that looked like grief. My father wrote this before he died, Ethan said quietly. He knew you'd need it someday. He knew I'd find someone worth fighting for. Ethan's voice cracked. He was right. They spent the rest of the night strategizing, reviewing the evidence, building a case, planning their next move, and sometime around 3 a.m., sitting on Tessa's kitchen floor surrounded by laptops and documents, Ethan took her hand. Thank you, he said. For what? For staying. For fighting. For being brave enough to trust when trust is the hardest thing. Tessa squeezed his hand. You stayed first. At the hospital, remember? You taught me that staying is how you show love. Then let's keep staying, Ethan said. No matter what comes next. Deal. The emergency board meeting was scheduled for Monday at 10 a.m. Ethan requested it formally, citing urgent matters requiring full board attention, and refused to provide details. Tessa spent the weekend preparing with him, cross-referencing every document on the flash drive, building an airtight presentation that would leave no room for denial. Catherine joined them Sunday afternoon at Ethan's penthouse, reading through the evidence with clinical precision. Thomas always was 3 steps ahead, she said, something soft in her voice. He knew the board would eventually resist change. Knew you'd need ammunition? Did you know about this letter? Ethan asked. I knew it existed. Didn't know the contents. Catherine looked at Tessa. He trusted his attorney to recognize the right moment. Apparently you're that moment. No pressure, Tessa muttered. Catherine's lips curved. You can handle pressure. You've been handling it for months. She turned to Ethan. What's your strategy tomorrow? Present the evidence. Demand Marcus, Richard, and Helena's resignations for conflict of interest and conspiracy to interfere with corporate governance. Then reintroduce ClearCore with Tessa's updated projections. They'll claim the evidence is fabricated, which is why I'm bringing witnesses. Ethan pulled up his phone, showed them a message thread. Chen's assistant, Maria Gonzalez, has agreed to testify. She has corroborating emails on her personal device. She's also filing a complaint with the SEC. Catherine nodded slowly. Risky. If this goes wrong, they'll destroy both of you. Then we won't let it go wrong, Tessa said. Monday morning arrived gray and cold. Tessa dressed in her most severe suit, black tailored armor. Ethan wore charcoal, his CEO mask firmly in place. They arrived at Hailtech headquarters separately, optics mattered, and met in Ethan's office 15 minutes before the meeting. Ready? He asked, terrified, but ready. Good. Use the fear. It means you care. They walked to the boardroom together. The space was exactly what Tessa expected. Mahogany table, leather chairs, walls lined with portraits of former CEOs. 12 board members sat waiting, expressions ranging from curious to hostile. Marcus Chen sat at the far end, Richard Vanderbilt beside him, Helena across from them. All 3 looked confident. That confidence wouldn't last. Ethan took his seat at the head of the table. Tessa sat to his right, laptop open, evidence queued. Catherine entered last, taking her seat with the authority of someone who'd built this company alongside her husband. Thank you for convening on short notice, Ethan began. I've called this meeting to address serious allegations of board misconduct. Marcus leaned back in his chair. What allegations? That 3 members of this board, yourself included, conspired to sabotage Hailtech's ClearCore initiative for personal financial gain. That you commissioned a targeted harassment campaign against my relationship to undermine my credibility. And that you pressured external parties to professionally isolate Miss Reed in retaliation for her work on ClearCore. The room went silent. Marcus's smile never wavered. Those are bold accusations. Do you have proof? I do. Ethan nodded to Tessa. She connected her laptop to the boardroom display. The first document appeared, an email from Marcus to Richard dated 6 weeks earlier, from mchencapital.com. To R. Vanderbilt, vanderbiltholdings.com. Subject, The Hale Problem. Date, November 18, 2024, 11:47 p.m. Richard. Ethan's clean energy nonsense will crater our Q1 dividends. Need to shut this down before the February board vote. He's too attached to the analyst, Reed. If we can separate them or discredit her work, the initiative dies. Thoughts? Marcus, that's out of context. Marcus said quickly. Is it? Tessa advanced to the next slide. Richard's response. From R. Vanderbilt to VanderbiltHoldings.com to mchennaChenCapital.com. Subject. The Hale problem date. November 19, 2024, 7:23 a.m. Agreed. Helena's connected to Camille Rowan through the Morgan Foundation board. Can apply pressure there. Also suggest we dig into Reed's background. Anything we can weaponize? The room's temperature dropped 20 degrees. Tessa kept advancing slides. More emails, documented payments to a private investigator, the anonymous email sent to Tessa's work address traced back to an IP registered to Chen Capital. This is circumstantial, Helena said, voice tight. Actually, it's corroborated. Ethan pressed a button on the conference phone. Maria, are you there? Yes, Mr. Hale. A young woman's voice, nervous but steady. Please state your name and position for the record. Maria Gonzalez, Executive Assistant to Marcus Chen at Chen Capital. And can you confirm the authenticity of the emails we've just presented? Yes. I prepared those emails at Mr. Chen's direction. I also arranged the payment to the private investigator and sent the anonymous email to Miss Reed using a proxy server. Pause. I'm cooperating with the SEC's investigation into Mr. Chen's undisclosed investments in Hale Tech competitors. Marcus shot to his feet. You had no authority to... She had every authority, Catherine cut in, voice like ice. Whistleblower protections apply, Marcus. As does fiduciary duty to report board misconduct. Tessa advanced to the next slide. Marcus's financial disclosures. Highlighted in red were 5 shell companies with investments in Solardyne, Hale Tech's primary clean energy competitor. You've been shorting Hale Tech stock while sitting on our board, Ethan said quietly. Betting our initiatives will fail. That's not just unethical, it's illegal. Richard stood. This is a setup. That flash drive could contain anything. We demand independent verification. Already done. Tessa pulled up the final document. A notarized letter from Hale Tech's IT department confirming the email's digital signatures matched internal servers. Timestamps, IP addresses, metadata, everything verified by a third-party forensic analyst. The triad was complete. Physical evidence, witness testimony, authoritative validation, irrefutable. Marcus's face had gone gray. Helena was already gathering her things. Richard looked at Catherine, desperate. Catherine, surely you don't believe... I believe the evidence, Catherine said coldly. I believe Maria's testimony, and I believe my late husband knew this day would come. She stood. Effective immediately. I'm calling for a vote to remove Marcus Chen, Richard Vanderbilt, and Helena Cross from Hale Tech's board for violations of fiduciary duty and conflicts of interest. All in favor? 9 hands rose. Only Marcus, Richard, and Helena abstained. Motion carries. Catherine's gaze swept the room. You have 1 hour to clear your offices. Legal will be in touch regarding SEC cooperation and potential criminal charges. Marcus started to argue. Catherine silenced him with a look that could shatter steel. 1 hour, Mr. Chen. Don't make me call security. They left. Helena first, nearly running, Richard and Marcus arguing in hushed tones. The remaining board members sat in stunned silence until the door closed. Then everyone started talking at once. Ethan raised a hand. There's one more item on today's agenda. ClearCore Initiative, revised proposal. He nodded to Tessa. Miss Reed will present. Tessa's heart hammered. This was it, the moment everything either came together or fell apart. She stood, advanced to her presentation, and began. ClearCore is a clean energy infrastructure initiative with a projected ROI of 43% over 5 years. Unlike traditional green energy plays, we're focusing on practical applications. Grid modernization, energy storage, efficiency optimization. The data shows. She talked for 20 minutes, showed projections, market analysis, competitor comparisons, answered questions about costs, timelines, risks. And as she spoke, she felt something shift in the room, skepticism giving way to interest, resistance giving way to possibility. When she finished, the board was silent. Then one member, an older woman named Patricia, whom Tessa had never met, spoke. "This is excellent work, Miss Reed. Why haven't we seen this level of analysis before?" "Because 3 board members spent 6 weeks trying to discredit me instead of evaluating the proposal." Patricia smiled. "Fair point." She turned to Ethan. "I move we approve ClearCore initiative as presented, with Miss Reed consulting on implementation." "Seconded," another member said. The vote was unanimous. Ethan met Tessa's eyes across the table, and she saw everything there: gratitude, pride, love. They'd done it. Together. After the meeting, Catherine pulled Tessa aside in the hallway. "That was impressive," Catherine said. "Thank you. Thomas would have liked you. He always said the best partnerships are built on mutual respect and shared purpose." Catherine's expression softened. "You have that with my son." "I hope so. I know so. I've been watching. You make him better, more human, more purposeful, and he makes you braver." Catherine squeezed Tessa's shoulder. "Don't let anyone make you doubt that again." The story broke Tuesday morning. Bloomberg first, then Wall Street Journal, then every major outlet. Hale Tech board scandal. 3 directors removed for conflicts of interest. The articles detailed everything: the emails, Maria's testimony, Marcus's illegal shorting, the conspiracy to sabotage ClearCore. Tessa's name appeared repeatedly, identified as the data analyst whose work exposed the fraud. Her phone exploded. Colleagues, former classmates, reporters requesting interviews, and one text from Camille. "My office. Noon. We need to talk." Tessa arrived at Rowan Advisory at 11:55, stomach churning. Camille's door was open. She gestured Tessa inside, closed the door. "Sit." Tessa sat. Camille studied her for a long moment. "I owe you an apology. I'm sorry. I pulled you from Thornton because Helena Cross called me. Told me you were compromised, that Ethan was using you to rubber stamp his pet projects." Camille's jaw tightened. She made it sound reasonable, professional. I should have questioned her motives. "You were protecting the firm. I was protecting my reputation." "There's a difference," Camille leaned back. "You built ClearCore's data model on your own time with your own resources. You disclosed the relationship to me. You maintained professional boundaries. I should have trusted you." Tessa felt something loosen in her chest. "Thank you. Don't thank me yet. I'm putting you back on Thornton. And I'm offering you senior analyst. 30% raise, your own accounts, mentorship responsibilities." Camille's expression softened fractionally. "You've earned it, Reed. Time we made that official." Tessa blinked back tears. "I don't know what to say. Say yes. Then get back to work. Thornton's a mess without you." The rest of Tuesday passed in a blur. Work emails. Congratulations from colleagues. 3 interview requests from financial journalists wanting the inside story. Tessa declined all of them. This wasn't about publicity. It was about proving that competence and relationships could coexist without compromise. Wednesday evening, Hale Tech hosted a press conference at their headquarters. Ethan stood at a podium flanked by the remaining board members, cameras flashing, journalists shouting questions. Tessa watched from the back of the room, deliberately invisible. "I'll make a brief statement, then take questions," Ethan began. "Yesterday, Hale Tech's board removed 3 directors for violations of fiduciary duty and conflicts of interest. An investigation revealed these individuals had been actively sabotaging company initiatives for personal financial gain. We have cooperated fully with the SEC and expect criminal charges to follow." A reporter shouted, "Mr. Hale, were the removed directors targeting your relationship with Tessa Reed?" Ethan's expression never wavered. "Their campaign included attempts to professionally discredit Miss Reed, yes. Those attempts failed because Miss Reed's work is excellent. Her integrity is unimpeachable, and their accusations had no basis in fact." "Are you still together?" "Miss Reed and I are partners, professionally and personally. That won't change. Some critics say you're letting personal feelings influence business decisions. ClearCore initiative was approved unanimously by the board after reviewing comprehensive data analysis. The numbers speak for themselves. If anyone wants to review Miss Reed's projections, we'll provide them. I'm confident they'll find what we found. This is sound business. Another reporter. What about claims that you have a pattern of relationships that damage women's careers? Ethan's jaw tightened. That narrative was manufactured by the removed board members to isolate me. My past relationships ended amicably, and all 3 women have successful careers. Anyone claiming otherwise is either misinformed or deliberately lying. The questions continued, about ClearCore's timeline, about board replacements, about Maria Gonzalez's testimony. Ethan answered with clinical precision, never flustered, never defensive. And when the press conference ended, he found Tessa in the back of the room. "How'd I do?" he asked. "You were perfect. I hate press conferences, I know." She took his hand. "But you did it anyway. For us." Friday evening, Catherine hosted a dinner at her townhouse. Just the 3 of them plus Marion, who'd been discharged from rehab that morning. Tessa helped her mother up the townhouse steps, heart swelling at how much Marion's mobility had improved. Catherine greeted them at the door. "Mrs. Reed, welcome. Call me Marion. We're past formalities." They ate in the smaller dining room. Roast chicken, winter vegetables, wine that probably cost more than Tessa's monthly rent. Conversation flowed easily. Catherine and Marion discovered a shared love of British mysteries. Ethan told stories about ClearCore's pilot program. Tessa relaxed into the strange, wonderful reality that this was her life now. After dinner, Catherine pulled Tessa into the library. "I have something for you." She handed Tessa a leather portfolio. "Open it." Inside was a letter of recommendation, Catherine Hale endorsing Tessa Reed for admission to Columbia's executive MBA program. It was glowing, specific, and signed in Catherine's distinctive script. "I can't accept this," Tessa said. "You can, and you will. You're brilliant, Tessa. You've proven that repeatedly. But the finance world is still an old boys' club. An MBA from Columbia opens doors." Catherine's gaze sharpened. "I'm not giving you charity. I'm giving you ammunition." Tessa felt her throat tighten. "Thank you, don't thank me. Just keep making my son better." Catherine paused. "And keep making yourself better. You deserve that." That night, walking home through cold Manhattan streets, Tessa and Ethan stopped at the same bench in Central Park where he'd kissed her in the snow. They sat shoulders touching, watching their breath fog the air. "We did it," Tessa said. "We did. Marcus, Richard, and Helena are done. ClearCore is happening. I got my promotion. Your board is stable." She turned to him. "What happens now?" Ethan was quiet for a moment. Then he pulled a small box from his pocket. Tessa's breath caught. "Wait, it's not what you think. Look." She opened the box. Inside was a key. Simple, silver, clearly modern. "It's to the penthouse," Ethan said. "I'm not asking you to marry me, not yet anyway. I'm asking you to stay. Not just visiting, not just occasional nights. Really stay. Make it ours instead of mine." Tessa stared at the key. "That's a big step." "I know. Your mother will have opinions. She already gave her blessing. The media will have opinions. They always do." "I don't care." Tessa took the key, felt its weight. Thought about her tiny Queens apartment with its radiator that clanked and its view of a brick wall. Thought about Ethan's penthouse with its floor-to-ceiling windows and its space for both of them. Thought about partnership and choice and the girl who'd felt unwanted her entire life finally being chosen. "Okay," she said. "Okay, yeah, let's stay. Really stay." Ethan pulled her close, kissed her temple. "Thank you. For what?" "For being brave enough to trust. For fighting when running would have been easier. For showing me that being human isn't weakness, it's strength." Tessa smiled against his shoulder. "You taught me that first." They stayed on that bench until the cold drove them away, then walked to Ethan's penthouse, their penthouse now, and started building something neither had expected to find. Home. 1 year later, the ClearCore initiative's unveiling occupied the Museum of Natural History's Rose Center, all glass and cosmos, a fitting metaphor for the work they'd done. 700 guests filled the space, investors, journalists, city officials, environmental advocates. Tessa stood beside Ethan as he addressed the crowd, watching him explain the program's success. An 83% efficiency breakthrough, partnerships with 12 cities, projected reduction of 4 million tons of carbon emissions annually. None of this would exist without exceptional data analysis and unwavering commitment, Ethan said, turning to Tessa. Miss Reed, my partner in every sense, made this possible. Her projections gave us the roadmap. Her courage gave us the will to fight for it. Applause rippled through the space. Tessa felt her face warm, uncomfortable with attention but grateful for recognition. Beside her, Marian squeezed her hand, left side still weaker but functional. Speech nearly back to baseline. After the speeches, Catherine found them in the planetarium, champagne in hand. Well done, she said. Both of you. Thank you for believing in us, Tessa replied. I didn't believe at first. I was suspicious, protective, worried Ethan would be hurt. Catherine's smile was self-deprecating. But you proved me wrong. You stayed when leaving would have been easier. You fought when silence would have been safer. That's the kind of strength Thomas always said a partnership needs. Later, as the crowd dispersed and museum staff began cleanup, Ethan and Tessa returned to the bench. Not the one in Central Park, but a new one on the museum's terrace overlooking the city. It had become their spot over the past year. The place they came when decisions needed making or silence needed sharing. Remember the gala? Ethan said. When you hid on the terrace and I found you? I remember thinking you were rude for not leaving me alone. He laughed. And I remember thinking you were the first person in years who didn't want anything from me. I wanted your jacket. It was cold. Fair point. He turned to face her. We've come a long way from that terrace. Yeah, we have. Ethan reached into his pocket, that same gesture from a year ago, and Tessa's pulse kicked. This time it is what you think, he said quietly. The ring was simple. Platinum band, single diamond. Elegant without being ostentatious. It looked like clarity and commitment and choice. Tessa Reed, Ethan said. You made me human when I'd forgotten how. You saw me when I was tired and broken and still becoming. You stayed when staying was hard. You fought when fighting was terrifying. You chose me, not my money, not my status, just me. His voice caught. Will you keep choosing me? Officially. Forever? Tessa looked at the ring, at Ethan's face, at the city spread below them like a promise. She thought about the unwanted girl she'd been, the woman she'd become, the partnership they'd built from fake beginnings and real courage. Yes, she said, 1,000 times yes. He slid the ring onto her finger, perfect fit. Like he'd known her size all along. He had. Catherine had helped. They kissed as the city lights flickered on, as the museum doors closed behind them, as their future stretched forward bright and unmapped. 6 months later, they married in a small ceremony at the townhouse, just immediate family and close friends. Marian walked Tessa down the aisle, left side still slightly dragging but determined. Catherine actually cried during the vows. Jenna gave a toast about stubborn best friends and billionaires with hearts. And when Ethan said I do, Tessa felt something settle that had been restless her entire life. Belonging. The moral of their story wasn't about billionaires or romance or fairy tale endings. It was simpler, harder, more true. Dignity means refusing rescue and demanding respect. Love means staying when staying is difficult. Partnership means building together instead of fixing each other. And sometimes, not always, but sometimes, being chosen starts with choosing yourself. 2 years after that wedding, ClearCore expanded internationally. Tessa completed her EMBA, joined Hailtech's board, and launched a consulting practice focused on sustainable business models. Marian moved into a brownstone 3 blocks from Catherine's townhouse, and the 2 women had weekly bourbon nights that neither would discuss details of. Ethan proposed a second initiative, affordable healthcare access through data-driven cost reduction. Tessa said yes before he finished explaining. And on quiet evenings, when the work was done and the world was sleeping, they returned to their bench, the one in the Rose Center overlooking the city. No longer a CEO and the analyst, but partners who'd chosen to stay, to build, to treat love as purpose instead of leverage. What would you do differently? Ethan asked one night. If you could go back to that gala, knowing everything that would happen? Tessa thought about it. About doubt and fear and the long week she'd spent pushing him away. About Catherine's tests and Marcus's conspiracy and the evidence that saved them. Nothing, she said finally. Every hard part made us stronger. Every fear we conquered brought us closer. I wouldn't change any of it. Not even the scary parts. Especially not those. They taught me I was brave enough to stay. Ethan pulled her close, kissed the top of her head. Good answer. They sat in comfortable silence watching the city breathe below them. And if you'd asked them, both separately and together, what their story proved, they'd tell you this. Being unwanted doesn't mean being unworthy. Being chosen doesn't require being perfect. And sometimes the most radical act is believing you deserve the love you're offered, then fighting like hell to keep it. What would you have done in Tessa's place? Trusted the evidence or trusted your fear? Drop your answer in the comments. And if this story moved you, hit subscribe for more narratives about dignity, courage, and the kind of love that demands you grow. Thanks for staying until the end. It means everything.